Hi guys, this is Hiro, and in today's video I'm going to be going over how to properly accept. And why this is important is because the more you accept at a mental level, it'll improve your mental health. It'll help you basically be more peaceful at a mental level, and it'll also make it easier for you to attain the state of mind of happiness, which is very important. So the first thing we're going to do is unprogram your mind. So what that means is we all have kind of stories that we're telling ourselves, either consciously or subconsciously, that our life has to be kind of like this. You know, it has to be this job now, then this job later, etc. Or, you know, this age marriage, this age kids, etc. And any past, present, or future obstacle that you might have that kind of affects that story, your mind's kind of going to be going crazy over it. What we're going to want to do is identify those stories that we tell ourselves and basically just work on them. And I'm going to get into how to work on them later. But the first thing we're going to want to do is identify them. Because if you don't identify them, you can't work on it. And how these stories get programmed in your mind is basically from family and friends, unintentionally or intentionally. Movies and shows, that's why I'd kind of recommend stopping TV. The amount of impact they have on your brain is a lot. So we're going to want to unprogram our brain and basically just accept that if these stories don't come true exactly the way we want them to, that's okay. Next thing we're going to do is let go of all ego attachments. So our ego is attached to certain things. You know, certain people are involved in this story. You know, certain cars are involved to, you know, continue my story the way I want it to. We have all items, clothes, house, locations, experiences, etc. We attach to these things to keep that story going as much as our ego wants them to. So we basically just have to accept that certain things, if we don't have them anymore, that it's okay. That doesn't mean that, you know, you have to, you know, trade in your car for a cheaper car or something like that. That just basically means that just accept the thought of that if your car disappears, your nice car, or, you know, some of your nicer clothes, something happened to them, that it's completely okay. We're no longer going to be you know, relying on anything external for our happiness anymore, which is basically going to improve our mental health. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to stop resisting certain emotions. So when we resist certain emotions, that creates a lot of resistance in our mind. So, and again, we have to be aware of what emotions we're suppressing to an extent in order to improve on this. So the way we can be more aware also is when you live your day-to-day life, kind of see what events or what thoughts trigger you throughout the day. And based off of that, you can kind of be able to identify easier what emotions we basically need to work on expressing or anything like that. So that's that. Also, not only just expressing the emotions, but expressing those emotions at certain times in certain places or with certain people. That's also very important. Next is all thoughts should be observed. However, do not fight against anything your ego throws. So any thought that your mind has in your brain, you want to just basically observe it and possibly accept it. Do not try to go back and forth with it. So for example, if your brain throws you a thought that, hey, you know, in this room right now, nobody likes you. We're just basically going to observe that thought. We're going to possibly accept it. That doesn't mean it's true, but we're just accepting it so that we're no longer living out of fear. We are not going to fight back and forth with our ego, trying to validate with ourselves of why, you know, we're important to people in our room. And the way we'll validate that is, you know, we might look good or we might have on certain clothes or something like that, but you're never going to win against your ego. And if you do, it's very temporary. So we're just going to want to observe those thoughts and accept them. And that's that. Next, I made a quick do and don't list. So we're going to have to do the hard work. What do I mean by that? So when you live your day-to-day life, when you see certain thoughts and emotions that get brought up, we're going to have to work on them sometimes on the spot or at the beginning, maybe when you get home. But you have to, no one's going to accept for you. Okay, no one's going to accept all your fears for you. No one's going to, you know, express these emotions for you. You're going to have to do them by yourself. And sometimes this might not always be when you're meditating home alone. This might be, you know, when you're out in public or something like that. So just keep that in mind. And over time, this will slowly get better and easier. So the first few months is the hardest. The first 2 months to 2 years, it's basic. And after that, it's basically on cruise control. You're just doing it automatically. So that's good. Next, we're basically going to live in the present. So a lot of us, you know, when we're out in social situations and stuff like that, you know, we're not living in the present. You know, our mind is going crazy and stuff like that. We're just going to basically want to take a deep breath and just be aware of what we're thinking and feeling, so that way we can better work on it and do the hard work. So that's that. Before I forget, there's one thing I missed from this don't list, and that's, you know, watching too much movies and shows, because movies and shows perpetuate the thought of that, perpetuate some of the common stories that our ego has. The first don't is obviously don't latch onto any ego story. So a lot of people will say, hey, you know, mid to late 20s, get married, late to early 30s, have all my kids, blah, blah, blah. Everything before that should be smooth sailing. Everything after that should be smooth sailing. My career, mid 20s, have this job, late 20s, early 30s, excel, have my own business, blah, blah. If it doesn't exactly work out to that timeline, that's okay. Now, that does not mean that we're gonna we're gonna avoid those goals, or that we're not gonna do anything about them, or that we're just kind of gonna hope one day that all this falls in our lap. But what we're doing is, by accepting those fears, that we're no longer living out of fear. We're living from a more grounded place, so that, you know, we're not as emotionally turbulent, and, you know, our mental health can increase, and that we can live our life from a state of happiness more. And the next thing we're going to want to do is do not judge yourself. So any thoughts and emotions you have, obviously accept and let them flow without any judgment. Also, one other thing I want to do here, don't judge yourself about judging yourself. So if you catch yourself judging yourself, it's okay. So just accept the fact that, hey, you know what, I judge myself, that's okay, I'm improving. Even if I judge myself 1,000 more times, that's okay. We're gonna work on that. We're gonna work on allowing all our thoughts and emotions without judgment. But if you do judge yourself, it's okay. It's also kind of like how if you have anxiety that's stemming from fear, sometimes we don't actually, it's not the fear of something that's the problem. It's the fear of the fear. So it's a fear about having anxiety that's the problem. This is kind of similar. So we're basically not gonna wanna judge ourselves when we judge ourselves. So don't judge yourself when you judge yourself for having certain thoughts and emotions. Just accept the fact that you possibly may have judged yourself. And just to kind of tie in the anxiety points as I brought it up, don't accept the thought that you may have anxiety or fear. Okay, don't try to you know, not have anxiety as much as possible, or not have fear as much as possible. They're natural emotions. Just accept it. Accept anytime you judge yourself, your ego is always going to try to throw that at you. Accept anytime you have fears. And this should allow you to go on a path of better accepting properly on a day-to-day basis, which should improve your mental health and allow you to be in a state of mind of happiness more often. So thank you guys for watching this video, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.